Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk. I hope you're all good. I hope you're pleased with the 3 points. Nice to have 3 points in the bag for a change after the last few weeks. We've got a special guest on tonight, Phil, former Manchester United striker, played around 2003, came through the academy, won the Youth Cup, and I was fortunate to see him win that against Middlesbrough way back when. So pleased to have you with us, buddy. Yeah, man, I hope we're all feeling great. A big 3 points against a team really in form at the moment. Very much in control, I felt. And did well. Phil, as you are our guest tonight, buddy, I'll come over to you first, mate. How you feeling?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Marc. Good to be back on. Nice to have a catch up with you guys. As you say, it was an important 3 points tonight for the guys. I think after previous weeks and especially the Newcastle defeat, sort of a little bit of doom and gloom there. Not the performance that we was expecting, but yeah, I think tonight professional performance wasn't a stellar performance by any stretch, but I think deserved the 3 points overall. Brentford didn't really create any clear-cut chances apart from, the one when De Gea's come out and made a great save. So
yeah, made himself very big there, didn't he? Doing what he does best.
Save. Yeah, great save. I think that's his trademark, really. When people are going through one-on-one, he uses his feet and his body really well to sort of, block it and narrow the angle as much as he can. So, yeah, I mean, that'll do his confidence a world of good there, and a clean sheet, which was much needed, really, after the last couple of games. So yeah, I think overall, it was a good performance. Nothing really sort of, unexpected, if you like. I think we looked a little bit disjointed in the midfield, but I think that's just partly because we've not got Casemiro in there at the moment, which he's back soon. So hopefully that'll go back to the way we was, a couple of weeks ago when he was back playing, and we've got a lot of big games coming up, and obviously still in a few competitions which we want to try and go to the end and get to the finals in.
Absolutely right, and lots of people in the comments also agreeing with you too. And 3 important points seems to be the common phrase. Helly here as well. Evening, gents. I thought it was a good overall performance. Brentford are a very tricky lot to play against. And I think you saw that more in the second half, really. We weren't as assured, I think, in the second half, and they sort of did sit back, but they were dogged and they sort of closed us down a lot and got the ball back and did start to create some sort of chances for them. But I think we stood firm as well and did very well. Keno, great to have you with me, my man. It's been a while since you've been on the reaction. Good to have you. Scott McTominay, I'm going to come to you about tonight. He had a really good game. Obviously, man of the match in the end. A very solid performance by him, and I think he was pretty much a driving force in that midfield, wasn't he? You're on mute, buddy.
Yeah, I was just saying there was on mute there. Like, I think the second half he was very good. He won a lot of ball in the middle of the park. I think especially I can look at his defensive contribution, the way he covered space. He done fantastically well there. So yeah, happy at McTominay's performance. Look, he's someone who's come in for a lot of criticism recently, and look, at the end of the day, do I want McTominay to start every week? Absolutely not. But happy with his performance, and hopefully he can keep this up.
Yeah, absolutely right. Another good performance by another player, Bruno Fernandes, under a little bit of scrutiny recently. Did very, very well tonight, I thought. Quite pivotal. 114 touches, 87% pass accuracy, 83 passes completed, 30 final third passes. Going to take me a little while, sorry guys. 10 ball recoveries, 7 long balls completed, 4 out of 5 ground duels won, 3 key passes, 2 aerial duels won, 2 interceptions and 1 dribble out of 1 completed. Julio, were you impressed with Bruno tonight?
I always tend to be honest. He always seems to be one of the few players in our team that just turns up every game. To be honest, it was a classic Bruno performance, in my opinion, from this season. Very disciplined, very hardworking, a very positive performance from him. And do you know what I mean? His consistency is really good, and there's not much more I can really add on that. We're seeing it every week. It's like it's getting to the point where we don't even need to bring it up anymore.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Marcus Rashford obviously got the goal tonight, the difference maker between the two teams. Obviously, a great finish in the end, and a great performance. Anything you want to add about Marcus's performance, Julio?
In fact, not just Marcus, but on the whole team, they're all looking a little leggy. They all look a bit off the pace. It was obvious on Sunday. We got the job done tonight, but there was still, it's like, put it this way, all the firepower we were seeing from all the players before the international break, before the 7-0 defeat to Liverpool, in our best performances, it's almost like they look a little bit drained. Like this comment from Richard just says it all. When considering, obviously, Luke Shaw came off with a hamstring problem. I don't know how big that is. We're in the business end of the season and we can't play like that every game. I know it's obviously, if they're feeling tired, they can't help it. But you know, on another day where we've got more energy, we probably would have won that 2-3-0.
Yeah.
So it's good that he got the goal. It's good that we got the job done. But I'm starting to get a little bit worried as the games are going to pile up, because we're going to play just as much as we did before the international break from the World Cup, provided we reach finals, in a lot less time. And we don't have the squad to compete on all those fronts. So it's getting quite concerning now.
Yeah, absolutely right. Lots of all-round great performances tonight. A little bit concerned, obviously, with Luke Shaw, potential hamstring issue. Obviously, come off quite early in the game. Tyrell Malacia came on and actually did a pretty good job, and hopefully he recovers quickly. And obviously, we've got Malacia to hopefully be standing in good stead. Keane, you wanted to come in on that, buddy?
Yeah, look, I think the squad depth has definitely been challenged. It's been stretched in the last 6 weeks. Especially look, progressing in the Carabao Cup and Europa League it's been tough. But I do think that the one positive we can take out of it is the fact that Casemiro's coming back in, Eriksen's coming back in. You know, Garnacho potentially in a couple of weeks will be back as well. So look, the depth in the squad will be there. I think look, the last couple of weeks we've had to rely on Weghorst up top, which I think, in all honesty, he's probably not the player to start every single week for Man United. We just have to touch wood and pray now that Anthony Martial can stay fit for a couple of games, because if he can, we get a couple of wins, top four can be sealed very quickly.
He made it to the end, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, it's baby steps, as they say. But yeah, look, I think the most important thing now is getting both Casemiro and Eriksen back into that midfield, because whereas we talked about McTominay doing a job earlier, and he did do a job today, he done very well. We're talking about Sabitzer playing decent today. Casemiro and Eriksen and Fernandes was our best midfield this season. Is where we played our best football, and it's where we've had the most control in games. We need to get that midfield three back, especially in these games where, if you actually look at our fixture list, we're playing against teams who are either A, fighting for Europa League, or B, fighting relegation between now and the end of the season, which means all these teams are going to be up for it and they're going to be fighting. So I do think getting Eriksen back and Casemiro back, we'll see a lot better. We'll see a lot more control. But also, look, it gives the likes of, Sabitzer, McTominay, though, less games, less minutes, and less onus on them to put in performances. Because, look, when we come up against the likes of Brighton and Spurs later on in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to need the two of them in the field. Because, look, they're going to be really tough games and high intensity.
Yeah, and if you've been keeping up to date with the presses and everything, obviously Eriksen has made a return. He is training and he could potentially be within the team over the next couple of weeks, even as much as next week. And of course, only a couple of more games before Casemiro makes a return as well. And as you say, Keane, absolutely pivotal in our positive runs this season, and we need them both back for sure. Phil, just going to come to you about Jadon Sancho tonight. Obviously, a lot of criticism recently. Had a long break and came back and hasn't really hit the ground running. But he looked very sharp tonight. He looked very direct. He looked quite in control and had the ball at his feet a lot. Were you impressed with his performance tonight?
Yeah, I think it was a good performance, as I say, tonight. I don't think there was any real, standout performance, if you like. I think it was just a good team performance. Everyone sort of did the job and, worked hard and just sort of did enough really to get us over the line. But I think Jadon in sort of, the last 3 or 4 months really has started showing more signs of a consistent level of performance. I think he's still probably not hitting the heights that we expected and we wanted on a regular basis by any stretch of the imagination. But I think overall his performances are a lot better. He works hard. He seems to keep the ball a lot better. His decision making's improved. For me, the only thing I'm sort of still wanting him to maybe do a little bit more of is as a winger. I want my wingers to be a little bit more sort of aggressive when they're in possession, beat your defender, get a crossing. And I wouldn't just criticise, Sancho on that. I think, it's more of a, thing now in the modern game. A lot of the defenders, show people inside, and wingers are quite happy to just, play it back inside and just keep the ball moving rather than, the old school wingers where, you get 1v1 and you take them on the outside and get to the bar line and whip balls in it. I think for me, that sort of part of the game has gone out the game a little bit than it used to be. So for me, other than that, really, I think he's doing really well. And for me, he's somebody who's only going to keep getting better. As I say, he's still only young. I think he's had a bit of a hard time, as you said, with the timeout that he had. So, that's obviously been a bit of a setback for him. But, we're in a good place at the minute. We're in, a lot of competition still yet. So he's going to be a big player for us, hopefully, in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely right. And we've all mentioned, obviously, a bit of fatigue at the moment, the amount of competitions we're in. Obviously, going back to your experiences prior to that, would you be expecting the managers to be saying, look, we're in it to do all of them and we need to get 100% effort? Or would you expect to maybe lay off in other competitions, maybe rest players in the FA Cup or something like that?
I think it's a difficult one, really, because as we've touched on, the squad's not really got the depth in order for us to, be putting out the full team sort of in every game, in every competition. Because I think the priority this year was obviously at the start of the season to finish in the top 4. We've got a really good chance of doing that. I obviously, as I said from day one, if we can get a trophy in the cabinet as well this year, it'd be an amazing year for us. We've already done that already. We're in a good position in the league, and we're still in 2 competitions, and could potentially win another 2 trophies. So for me, I think when you're in that sort of moment in a season, the players will be feeling that because of the amount of games they've obviously had to play. But I think with the chance of winning silverware, and as I said, it's quite infectious when you win a trophy, especially for that changing room that. We've not had a trophy, and some of them players have been there for a long time and they've not had that feeling of, what that feels like when you win a trophy. I think that will push a lot of the lads through, and you'll run that extra mile to get to sort of, get to another final, get yourself another chance to win a trophy. It's going to be difficult because, as I say, we've got a lot of games coming up, and we've got a thin squad. We need players to sort of step up now. The players that, have maybe not been playing as regular as they might have wanted to, or the players who's coming back from injuries and stuff, we're going to need them to sort of come back and try and hit the ground running and be big players for us. The likes of Martial and Eriksen and players like that, they're going to be vital in this sort of last third of the season.
Yeah, absolutely right. And good to see James Jackson in the comments. I hope you're well, buddy. Marcus Rashford, doing the post-match interview, has come out and said a few things. He said, we're in that period of the season where every game's important, every point counts. Hopefully we can build on that and get back to where we were a couple of weeks ago. Everyone's clear on the fact that we're not going to play our best football every week, but we have to maintain our standards. We were patient out of possession, waited for the right conditions to press and stop supplies to the forward men, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what everyone says. You hear it all the time, one game at a time, and try to do whatever you can to get those 3 points and progress in competitions. Another player tonight that I felt I appreciate all of them, did a steady job, but Dalot was a complete change this week, Julio. I don't know if you agree with that, but I felt like he was good tonight, defended well, got overlapped very well, and was a bit of a threat on that right hand side.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was almost a case of I just cried out like, "Thank God," because I've said it on other shows before where he went to the World Cup as our first choice right back and he never came back. So it was really refreshing to see Dalot playing well again, because World Cup was 4 months ago. He came back, he was injured for a bit, then I think in and out again. And then when he started playing more, it just wasn't the Dalot we saw pre-World Cup. So, this was a guy who I think mid-tournament benched João Cancelo. Now, obviously, international football, and depending on how you want to play, obviously that can play a part. But it was just really good to see him back in the team properly as himself, rather than this shadow of himself that we've seen for the last few months. And hopefully, this good form can continue now until the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely right. And a cool little stat for you that I've just seen. Despite coming off in the 37th minute against Brentford, Luke Shaw completed more passes, 41, than any other Brentford player. Absolutely mental that is. That shows probably just how much they had the ball and how they were able to operate today. Really, really great stuff. As I said, I hope he comes back fairly soon. I think he's going to be massive in the run-in for sure. Pun intended. Anyway, let's move on to Sabitzer. I know we kind of touched upon him earlier. Keno, I don't know if you've got any more thoughts on him. It's taken him a little while. He looked rusty to begin with, but he's really come into his own. I think he's enjoying playing for Manchester United, and I felt like his performance was very good tonight. Really threatening, sort of dropped in the pockets just behind Rashford and played a great game, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was decent today in terms of getting on the ball and making things happen in the final third. It was weird to see him playing number 10. Usually he's played as kind of either a 6 or an 8 since he signed, so it was good to see him further forward. I think obviously with Leipzig he was better, obviously attacking the opposition box and trying to make things happen. Look, for a loan deal he's been decent. He's done a job in there. You can see in some games he's still trying to adjust to the pace of the Premier League. I think that's something that he's still adjusting to. Now look, with a full pre-season behind him, I think he can, let's say hypothetically speaking, if he stays, then look, I think a full pre-season could actually help him. Especially when you consider about Sabitzer this season, he played 3 or 4 games this season before he signed for United in January, and he got thrown straight in at the deep end.
I think it was only 18 minutes or something. I'm sure he only made 18 minutes in all those appearances.
Yeah, it was very little. There was only a handful of games in there where he kind of made little appearances at club level. Anyway, I know he played international at the start of the season for Austria, but when you consider how he's come in and he's he's done a reasonable job since he's come in, especially no football this season, he's done well. I think that's why we are to take the 20 million punt on him in the summer. Then I think a full pre-season will do him good, and we can maybe see a better Sabitzer. Again, he's not, for me personally, it's not a knock on him. I don't think he's someone who should be starting every week for United, especially when Casemiro and Eriksen come in, and when you consider, with new ownership, you'd like to think maybe a new midfield player will come in the summer, providing obviously we can sell and sell well. If we sell the likes of Donny van de Beek and etc., you'd like to think another good midfielder would come in. So look, he's definitely someone I think for a squad option, rotation player, definitely can do well. And you've seen in games like tonight, he can make an impact further forward. And again, his movement and link up play with Bruno Fernandes is something I like to see. The fact Bruno drops into the hole, and they the other one too is they link up very well. So he's a good player, and hopefully if he can. If the likes of Eriksen has to be bedded in maybe that bit slower when he comes back from injury, he can do a reasonable job. It's just one of them things where we talked about Scott McTominay and Fred not being competent enough on the ball. I think Sabitzer has more in his locker on the ball than them too. So I do think Erik ten Hag may look at him in the summer.
Yeah, I think we've spoken about this before. 20 million potentially from Bayern. I think it's a good bit of business, and I know I've been more than happy with that. Ten Hag has said a few things after the game. We played very good football. It's not easy against this Brentford team to create chances. It was a great finish from Marcus. He's in very good form, so hopefully he can keep doing that until the end of the season. We can all hope that he does that for the end of the season, I'm sure. We want to play as a machine and not make mistakes. We made one mistake, and thankfully they didn't benefit from it. This is a massive win. I admire Brentford. They play against top teams and they get results. I'm really proud of the team, really happy. Obviously means a lot to him tonight. We will come to the ratings in a minute. Loads of you over on Twitter. Come over to youtube.com/The Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. Get your comments in. We want to hear them. And get liking, get subscribing and get sharing. We spoke about briefly on David De Gea earlier. I'm just going to come to him very quickly and we'll come to ratings shortly after. I felt that he only really had a couple of things to do tonight. One big chance in particular, which I think is the mistake that Ten Hag was talking about. But he made himself big, and sometimes in those moments when you haven't had much to do all night, it can put you into a very difficult position. And I think he did well coming out of that. Do you think he was obviously only had one thing to do, Phil, but he sort of made himself big and very well, didn't he?
Yeah, mate, I think I touched on it before. I think as a goalkeeper, it is difficult, especially in a game like that where he's not had much to do. You've got to stay sort of switched on, and when you're called upon, he's usually there to make a big save for us, and he did it again tonight. I think, as I said, that's one of his sort of trademarks. Where he comes out and spreads himself quite well, makes it difficult for the attacker to try and slot it past him, and it's pretty vital for us because obviously a 1-0 win there, 3 points was the main objective. If we'd have drew that game, everything would have been sort of doom and gloom again, and people would have been criticising us. And I think it's just one of them games where Brentford are a tricky outfit to try and play against. We've got a lot of games coming up, so the manager's probably thinking we need to keep winning games to try and get in that top four. But on the other hand, we don't want to be sort of too expansive and overdoing things because we've got a lot of games coming up, as we've already said. So yeah, I think De Gea's had a decent night tonight. He's not had much to do, but when he's been called upon, he's made that big save, and that's earned us the 3 points. So yeah, done well.
Do you see him being number one next season? I know it's obviously we don't know what's going to happen, but would you say that he'll probably sign a new contract and stay as number one, or do you think they might look to get someone else in?
I don't know. It's a strange one, really, because I think a lot of people have sort of said about De Gea in terms of he's not the best with his feet, and I think obviously the way Ten Hag wants to play, would he look for another goalkeeper maybe who can play out a little bit more? For me, he's been a great keeper over the years. Yeah, he is. He does make a howler every now and again, and sort of he's got a mistake in him at times. But I think a lot of keepers have. You can look at all the goalkeepers. Edison, Alisson. They all make big mistakes. They are fantastic keepers, and they sort of pull you out of the crap a lot of the times as well. So you've got to set the rough with the smooth. Unfortunately, I think if you make a mistake as a goalkeeper, 9 times out of 10 it ends up in the back of your net, and you're sort of left with egg on your face. But yeah, I think for me personally, I would like him to stay. I think he's done really well for United. I think he's a great goalkeeper. I think he's cat's here. I think he's somebody who he's been at the club so long now that he's sort of somebody who people respect and look up to. And for me, I enjoy watching him play. I think he's a great goalkeeper. So for me, I'd like him to stay.
Yeah, good points, well made. You got a little friend there with you. Just want to come
to just quickly, just so people know, my cat's actually called Skulls because he's ginger. So I think that's probably why.
Love that.
Beautiful.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. What else? Eh? What else would you call him? I just want to come to Lisandro Martinez. A couple of stats for you. 92% pass accuracy, 86 touches, 70 passes completed, 7 ball recoveries, 7 ground duels won, 5 long balls completed, 5 tackles won, 2 clearances, 2 interceptions, 1 out of 1 dribble completed. Never ceases to amaze us, does he, Keane?
Oh, look, he's class, isn't he? Like, he's, again, like, we played against Brentford earlier on the season, and a certain group of fans were slagging him off, weren't they?
That's right.
Even though like they played like school children tonight themselves, like so. Like, look, at the end of the day, for all these people who keep doubting Lisandro Martinez, like, you need to take a big long look at yourselves and question why you watch football. You know, like this is what all I'd say about the Lisandro Martinez criticisms. You know, like, look, at the end of the day,
You should have done the other one with Jamie Carragher, the
and
Martinez one.
no, that's not in the overlay anymore. It's gone. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, like, look, he's for the money we paid, 60 million at the time. Everyone said that was steep for an Eredivisie centre half. Eric Ten Hag has obviously seen the Martinez skill set, and you can see how leaps and bounds how much he's improved our defence. The minute we've taken Maguire and Lindelof out of our defence and put Martinez in there, his ball winning ability in the air, on the feet, his pass accuracy, everything, like, he's a complete centre half at 5'9" as well. Like, look, I don't care what any scouts, by a scouts media person says, like, he's top class, and he's someone who I actually think, when you look at Harry Maguire potentially leaving the club, he's definitely in the conversation for Manchester United captain, in my opinion. He's definitely in the conversation. Now, will he get it? I don't think so. But he's definitely someone who I think shows leadership on the pitch. He's aggressive, and I think he's someone who I think would command the respect of the dressing room. Phil can definitely attest to this. He was in the Man United dressing room with the likes of Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Gary Neville, Ryan Giggs. Like, we finally have someone who's like them, has a bit of bite in them, and doesn't accept mediocrity. And I think that's what we need in our dressing room right now.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. A sensational player, and I hope he's here for many more years to come. Just another one for you before we come into ratings. Marcus Rashford has scored 10 winning goals in the Premier League this season, the most by a Manchester United player in the season since Wayne Rooney in 2009-10. Absolutely sensational. Hopefully they continues, as I said. Right, we're going to come to ratings. I want everyone to get involved in the comments. Obviously, we appreciate you being here. Make sure you liking and subscribing and all that jazz. Right, David De Gea. I won't bring him to you, Phil. I know you've spoken to him a couple of times already tonight. Julio, a sum up of him and a rating for me, please, buddy.
I think when you're a goalkeeper, it's difficult to rate them because, especially on an evening like this where they didn't have much to do, part of you wants to just start off the bang average like 5 or 6, because there was one point where he made a mistake, but there was one point where he made a good save. So I think I'm going to go with a 6, just because nothing amounted to anything for him this evening. He didn't have much to do. Can't rate him higher.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It is difficult, and I think unless they pull off, a monumental amount of saves within a game, it's very difficult to kind of score him higher than that. But he was solid, made a great save, did make a mistake, but ultimately kept a clean sheet, and obviously that needs to be spoken about. Right, moving on to Diogo Dalot, and I'll give that to you, Phil.
Yeah, I thought Dalot was quite good tonight. I think as a defender, your bread and butter is you're keeping a clean sheet. So I think that always, should boost your score up a little bit. Thought he looked quite good on the ball. There's a few chances where he had a good opportunity maybe to put a decent ball in the box, and he didn't really, make the most of that. But other than that, I thought he was pretty solid and worked quite hard. So I'm just going to give him a 7. I think it was a decent performance, and as I say, clean sheet for a defender. So yeah, I think 7's probably around about fair.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think I know the moments you were talking about were a couple of crosses and didn't really take on the man and stuff, and I think that's probably down to confidence at the moment. Yeah. He's been playing second fiddle, I think, for a number of weeks now to around Wan-Bissaka until more recently. This will give him a huge boost today. I'm absolutely sure of that. Keane, coming to you with Varane.
I give Varane a 7. I thought he was solid today. Like, the fact he dealt with Mbemo and Ivan Toney quite well, and I thought his level-headed approach to defending tonight, he calmed the defence down anytime Brentford tried to hit us in transition. So yeah, he was solid tonight. I'd give him a 7, and if we can keep him fit between now and the business end of the season, I think he will be vital to us having any success.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Lisandro Martinez, obviously we gave him a few stats earlier. Julio, over to you, buddy.
I'm going to give him See, I feel like a 6 is too low, but a 7 might be too high because it was a very assured performance. The one disappointment I had with him was there wasn't much of a battle between him and Ivan Toney, like a proper out and out obvious one, which is
Not
kind of what
not
I was
not his
hoping
fault though,
for.
was it? Not
No,
his fault.
no, it's not. I'll give him a 7 because it was very assured tonight.
Or a 7, an 8 or 8 for me. I think I would have given him, but a 7 or 8, absolutely fine. Right, Luke Shaw, and over to you, Phil. Oh, actually, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We're doing Malacia. Yeah, Luke didn't get enough of
Yeah,
him, did he?
I think Luke Shaw was doing well, obviously, and then he's got that little hamstring injury, so it's unfair really to give him a rating. I think Malacia, when he came on though, looked really good. Looked sharp. Sort of, he's really quick, and that first initial couple of yards, he sort of moves across the ground really quick. And I think there's a couple of times tonight where he's shown that, and I think for me, he's going to be a little bit unlucky, really, not to be playing ahead of Luke Shaw, because I think he's somebody who, is a little bit unlucky, really, not to be starting more games. I just think Luke Shaw's been playing really well again, and he's obviously versatile. He can play in that centre half position, so possibly, at some point, if Luke Shaw goes back into centre half, he can get a little bit more game time regular. But I thought tonight, after not playing many games, he's come in and looked really assured, and I'd probably give him a 7. I don't think he did anything, massively to sort of applaud him on or say that it was, worth, giving him a 9 or a 10. But I just thought it was a assured performance, especially after coming on, in a tricky game against a decent team, and he's obviously gets a clean sheet as well. So I'm going to give him a 7.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I thought he was absolutely brilliant actually tonight. And you'll probably remember my love for him, Phil. I love Malacia, and
rightly so. He's a good player. I think as I say, he's been a bit unlucky really not to be playing more games. I just think the form Shaw's been in, he's probably one of our, first names on the sheet at the minute.
Yeah, and for Erik ten Hag, obviously a very good problem to have, and both doing very, very well. Luke Shaw playing out of his skin this season, and maybe Malacia might get some opportunities in the next few weeks, and I think that will do him good as well. Get some more experience under his belt. Right, coming to Scott McTominay, Keno.
I give Scott McTominay an 8. I thought he was outstanding tonight. His ball winning ability was great. He was everywhere. And even going forward, like his ball carrying was very good. It got us out of trouble quite a few times. I think that aspect of his game is always very good. I think the one thing he always lacks is spotting that forward pass. And I don't think that's something he's going to develop at this age of his game. But I think, look, his ball carrying ability, his strength and his tackling, is improving. So yeah, I like him an 8. I thought he was like our man of the match tonight. I know Martinez was solid, but if you look at the second half and anytime Brentford had us in transition on the counter attack, he was making vital challenges. So I give McTominay an 8. He's my man of the match.
Yeah, it's a strange one for me because we've talked about this a few times. It seems that when McTominay kind of plays in the 6, he's not as he doesn't always play as well. But that was kind of where he was playing there tonight, wasn't he? And what do you think? What do you think he did? Well, obviously you've mentioned all the things that he did differently, but why do you think that was tonight? What did he just have a little bit of it, fire in him to be able to do the right things and to shield the defence and that kind of thing?
Do you know what? I think it's just the case. It's tonight's type of game suited him in terms of Brentford were trying to hit us on the break, and the creative side of the game he didn't have a big responsibility on that. So he got to keep his game simple. The fact that Sabitzer was in advanced positions and Bruno was dropping deep to get on the ball. I think McTominay just simplified his game. He just done his job. And I think that's why he stood out a bit more, because he wasn't obviously giving the ball away as much. Like, he does do this aspect of the game more often than not. It's just a case of the fact he loses the ball when he has that bit, when he plays in the 6 and he drops in. That's why you remember those a bit more.
You remember those negatives a bit more, really, don't you? I suppose when you're watching.
But when Bruno Fernandes, dropped in and played as a deep line playmaker tonight, the onus is on Bruno to get the attack started, to get the ball into Sabitzer, to get the ball into Anthony. I think that's why, though, we didn't see Scott McTominay's deficiencies as much. Like, if you play McTominay beside Fred and you play Bruno further forward, all of a sudden you see them deficiencies, because there's more onus on him to drop in beside the centre halves and they'll collect the ball and play it forward. Whereas tonight with Bruno dropping in, you didn't notice that as much because McTominay, Joe, just had the responsibility to defend, and when he gets the ball, just to carry it as much as he can.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And Marcel Sabitzer, Julio.
Sabitzer. It was a pretty solid performance from him. I'm going to give him 6 is too harsh. I'm going to give him a 7. I didn't really see anything from him that makes me say I could have done better there. It was just a solid all-round performance. I don't think he can walk away from that feeling a bit disappointed in anything, apart from maybe scoring when he had an opportunity to goal.
Yeah, that's fair. Good points well made. And Phil, Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah, I think I'm on sort of auto click here for 7s because I think for me, it was just a pretty all-round performance from Bruno. Nothing, extravagant or magnificent tonight. I just think industrious performance. Did everything he needed to do. Was wanting the ball all the time and working hard for the team. So yeah, I think for me it was just a good performance and a sort of trademark performance really from Bruno. He does a job for the team wherever he's asked to play, and yeah, I think he sort of led the team really well tonight and sort of led by example. So I'll just give him a solid 7.
Yeah, good points well made. So for those of you who might not have been following today, I think Chelsea are about to appoint Frank Lampard as interim until the end of the season. I didn't do that. That was keen. But well placed there, bro. A bit of a strange one for me. And I think this kind of sums up for me the Bowley bonanza, which is going on over at Chelsea. We'll have to see how that works out. And obviously they can't do any worse. So let's wait and see how that obviously unfolds. Keno, going to come to you on Sancho. Your rating for him, please.
Yeah, I give Sancho. I'm not going to give him a 6. I think I'm kind of between a 6.5 and a 7. I give him a 6.5. I think he was bright in this game. He got forward. He got involved. Now, look, I know people are looking for the end product for him. I do think he's still a player that needs development. That he's still young, still adjusting. Like people say, he's English. He should be used to the English game, but he did most of his development in the Bundesliga, so he's still adjusting to the Premier League. Mm-hmm. So I think, look, I still think he needs time. If people are still giving David De Gea time, then Jesus Christ, you need to give Jadon Sancho some time.
Slightly different, I think, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But look, at the end of the day, David De Gea is making mistake upon mistake every week in terms of distribution, not coming out for crosses and not sweeping. But people are coming at Jadon Sancho for not putting the ball in the back of the net. At the end of the day, he's a creative midfield player, and that's his job. Yeah. And he's doing that aspect of the game. So I do think people need to lay off him a bit. Look, to be fair, we paid 73 million for him. Look, there's going to be times where he's going to need to step up in the big game. People tend to forget he missed 4 months of football with a physical and mental health issue. He's played barely any football this season. It's going to take him time to come back and play even remotely what he did towards last season. So give the young man time. Like, look, he needs game time. He needs minutes. And look, you need to have him in the right system. We talk about, backing players and backing the manager. We literally have the most reactionary fan base in world football, bar none. I do think we have the most reactionary and harsh fan base at that. Yeah. So I do think they need to give him a bit of time. And look, if it's the case that this time next year he's not putting up trees, then yeah, absolutely, you can talk about Joe replacing him. But I do think some of the talk around Jadon Sancho is a bit premature right now.
I do agree. I think he will be fine this summer, but it's make or break for him next season. And you've got to remember, and I know it's like that for a few players, but he came in at a very difficult point. Ollie left slightly after, and then of course he's had 3 different managers since. It's quite difficult for a young player, who's only had sort of like a little bit of quite a bit of experience in the Bundesliga to make him the player that he is. It's very, very difficult, and he's not really been given a clean slate yet, I think, is my opinion anyway. Right, I'm going to make these last 2 very quick. Julio, Anthony.
Anthony gets a 7 for me. He was, especially first half, he was very active. He was always trying things, and I think it was positive. It was a positive performance from him. It was a shame that a lot of his chances didn't go in, but he kept trying, and he was involved. He was heavily involved in the first half, so I'll give him a 7.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All sevens tonight, by the sounds of it. You're absolutely right, Phil. I thought he was good. There was a couple of opportunities really that were very, very close, particularly in the first half. Was it? So just unfortunate, but I really rate Anthony. I think he does a lot for the team, a lot of tracking back, and another solid performance. Last but not
Phil,
least,
can I
go
just
on.
ask Phil, just with regards to Anthony, because obviously he's someone who was, I think, look, we've seen by recent performances, probably a bit rough around the edges. When you were playing for Manchester United, and when you were coming through the team, did you ever like make allowances for like a player like Anthony who can deliver like individual brilliance? Like, you know, like as a teammate, would you kind of like make allowances for a player like that?
Yeah, I think sometimes you do have to sort of to deal with players like that. I think Anthony's one of them players who fits that mold. I think, you know, he's scored a lot of big goals. I think he's somebody who, you know, you can sort of look at him and say, yeah, he works hard for the team. He drops in. He can do, you know, things that other players can't do. And for me, yeah, I think that's just part and parcel of the game. Really, sometimes you get players that are like that, and you've just got to sort of get on with it. I think there was a couple of players I remember sort of who was similar in that respect, where yeah, they might not sort of, you know, be a traditional type player, but you know, you can sort of sometimes give them the ball and they'll produce a little bit of magic and, you know, whip one in the top corner. So you've got to give them a little bit of leeway at times. I think he's not quite at the level where, you know, you'd say, you know, you look at someone like a Messi and all the other players would be like, right, we can do all these donkey work and he can just stay out there and we give him the ball and he wins us the game. But I think he's sort of a player where, you know he's always going to work hard, and he can produce that little bit of magic. If you know, things aren't going well, he can be somebody who can just jink inside. And, you know, we've seen it numerous times this season where he's, you know, got that far corner, you know, that left-footed curler into the far corner. The only thing for me is what frustrates me with him, and I don't know if this is the same with you guys, he always cuts back inside and he doesn't take people on the outside, and then that gives the defender a bit of a problem. I think defenders are just so onto him now and they know that he just comes inside. And I don't think he's quite as good as like your Ian Robbins, who can just come inside every time and you know what they're going to do and you can't stop him. But yeah, I mean, he's a great player. He's only young, and for me, you know, he'll only get better. I just think people need to maybe have a chat with him and just say, you know, even sometimes just push it down the line and try and whip it in with your right foot, and then at least it plants a seed in the defender's mind and thinks, right, he's going to try and go on the outside sometimes, and that gives you more time then to cut in on your left foot sometimes. Because for me, it's as a winger, you've got to be, you know, flexible and mix your game up at times. I think for me, he sort of does that sort of one-trick pony sort of thing too much.
Yeah, he's quite one-dimensional, very, very left-footed, isn't he? And certainly
Yeah.
needs to bring that to his game. So last but not least then, I was going to come to you on this one, Phil. Marcus Rashford playing as the number 9
Yeah.
try. I haven't spoken to you a little while on him and how good
Yeah,
he's been this season. But yeah, over to you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm going to break the mold here, Mark, and we're going to go for I'm going to say 8. I think, you know, he was really good today, led the line well. You know, he's not played in that position as much this season with Weghorst, you know, leading the line most times. So for me, you know, as a striker, you know, getting on the score sheet is the main aim, which he did. He was the match winner. But the main thing for me, which I've sort of, you know, noticed a lot this season with Marcus is, you know, his confidence is back, and every time he gets the ball, you know, you expect him to do something. But that's not just on the ball. I think off the ball, what I liked tonight was, you know, there was a young fullback came on for Brentford and he made a run down the line and Rashford chased back and knocked him off the ball and won the ball and got a free kick. And I think that side of his game, from where he was last year, to where he is now. Yeah, obviously the goals are going in. You know, your confidence is through the roof because every time you score and, you know, you play in every game. But I think that part of his game last year, you know, his body language was really poor. Yeah. His confidence was shot. You know, he didn't want to be there. It just looked like, you know, he wanted the ground to swallow him up. Whereas now it's an absolute, you know, completely different Marcus Rashford. And, you know, working hard for the team is something that you've got to give the manager credit for there. I think he's, you know, definitely instill that in all the players, and, you know, Rashford's reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah, absolutely right. And let's not take away the finish as well. You see a different type of player in Rashford, as you said, but his finishing has been
just confidence. Yeah.
That finish tonight, I can't remember who it was against, but he had a similar one where
Man
he
City,
hit
it was Man City.
No, it was when he hit into the roof of the net, and it was down not the Stretford end at Old Trafford.
Betis.
Was it against?
Real
Fulham?
Betis.
Oh, it might have been Real Betis. Yeah, great finish then as well. Very, very similar.
Yeah.
He really had to sort of lift it, and that's something that
Yeah.
we haven't seen before. Anyway, guys, we're going to come to the end. I really appreciate all your time tonight, all the comments, and of course, as Keen has pushed up there, like and subscribe, really important to us. Phil, it's been wonderful to speak to you again, buddy. I hope you've been well, and it's great to have you back. And hopefully, going forward, we might see a bit more of Phil coming on. We really appreciate your time, buddy. A few shows coming up, obviously, again as usual, and yeah, until then, we will see you next time.